As an atheist who lived in the Bible Belt for years, I know what it's like to feel completely alone in a sea of delusion. What I didn't realize was just how many atheist, humanist, and skeptic groups are out there, and how fast the movement is growing. A lot of people ask me how they can find and get plugged into a local secular community, so I've put together a resource on my website to help you with exactly that. I've also teamed up with a YouTuber named Godless Cranium to talk about the different ways that atheists deal with grief, how we approach it differently than theists, and some of the resources for dealing with grief as well. I highly recommend his channel. It's extremely entertaining and informative, and I'll be doing a collaboration on his channel next week, so make sure that once you're done watching this that you head over to his channel, subscribe, and hit the bell button so you get notified of that. If you go to my website, holykoolaid.com/atheist-community, you'll find a page there where I've put together a bunch of resources to help you find local atheist communities near you. The first one is called Sunday Assembly. It's basically a list of various humanist groups that meet similar to church, but without all of the dogma and preaching and stuff that you would expect at church, and they just sing and have potlucks and hang out and have a good time. I think a lot of them meet only once a month, but they have groups all over the world, including Australia, all throughout Europe, the US. It's a great resource. If you're looking for something that meets weekly, Oasis is fantastic. It's similar to Sunday Assembly. It's a humanist group, but they don't have quite as many locations yet. But if you're in an area that has one, I definitely recommend that you check them out. I've been to a couple of these and absolutely love them. If you're the drinking type, Skeptics in the Pub has groups that meet. They're not necessarily all atheists, but most of the people that you run into, a lot of them will be, and at least they'll be skeptical and pro-science, and they have locations all over the place that you can go and check out. There's a map here. You can find groups in Europe and Southeast Asia, the US, Australia, New Zealand, and it's just a lot of fun. I've been to only one of these in Colorado, but I really recommend it. If you're looking for something that's in the Muslim world, one of your best bets is going to be the Atheist Republic. They have a list of consulates, and you can find groups. A lot of these are online communities. They're a little more hesitant to meet up, but they have international groups, not just in the Middle East and Muslim countries, but all over the world. And once you get to know someone online, you can meet up with them in person, you can set up meetings, and just know that you're not alone, that even places like Saudi Arabia, about 20% of the people in Saudi Arabia, when polled anonymously, identify as non-religious, and about 5% identify as atheist. So there are people out there who are not religious around you as well. Another great resource for getting plugged into an online community is the Atheist Directory list through Facebook, which one of my friends put together, and they have a bunch of different Facebook groups where you can find other atheists in your state. If you search for skeptic, atheist, atheism, stuff like that on Meetup, a lot of times you can find local free thought and atheist groups near you, and this is international, so they have meetups all over the world. It's pretty cool. If you're a student, the Secular Student Alliance has groups all over the US in both high schools and colleges that you can get plugged into, and if there's not one in your school, then they have resources to help you set one up. Sometimes you can run into snags with faculty or different staff members at your school who will try to block that, but a lot of times the FFRF will step in and take legal action if necessary in order to push some of this through. American Atheist has affiliates all over the US. So, for example, there's the atheist community of Tulsa, there's groups in Dallas, there's groups really pretty much all over, except I guess Montana's kind of missing out. But if you just want to type in a location and search within like 50 miles or 100 miles or whatever, you can go to the Secular Directory and just do a search there. If you're looking for a humanist group, secularhumanism.org has a map of groups all throughout the US, and you can find humanist groups there. Or there's also AmericanHumanist.org has put together a list of 232 groups that are all over the US. If you're wanting to find one in Canada, atheistinlight.network has a map of various humanist groups that they've compiled, and that is right here. Again, all of these resources can be found on my website, holykoolaid.com/atheistcommunity. I really recommend that you go and check some of these out and try to find a group and get plugged in or set one up. Now I'm going to turn you over to Godless Cranium to talk about grief and how to deal with that. Again, I really hope you like his channel as much as I do, and I highly recommend that you go and that you subscribe to his content.
Before I begin, I wanted to thank Holy Koolaid for this opportunity to work with him on this video. I'm a big fan of his work, and even though we're about to venture into some uncomfortable territory subject-wise, I'm thankful that I'm able to speak directly to his subscribers. I think one of the things we struggle with as human beings is death. We grapple with the knowledge that one day we will die, and at the same time we often see loved ones pass before we do. I often hear theists say that if there's no eternal life, if there is no heavenly reward or punishment when we shuffle off this mortal coil, then what's the point? Atheists often counter with something along the lines of, it's death that gives us our lives meaning. We only have a short time to enjoy this life, so we should make the most of it. In other words, in some ways, death and the urgency that it lends our lives enhances our experiences and makes us realize how precious this short time is and can be. But I do think that when religious people say that religion helps them with dealing with the grieving process, that they have a point. I don't think it's a very good point, but simply lacking belief in a deity doesn't offer someone who is grieving anything to help them cope. Atheism by itself is not up to the task. It offers no philosophies or coping mechanisms in which to help us through the grieving process. However, I also think that religions such as Christianity stunt our ability to properly come to terms with the loss of a loved one. Instead of learning to face reality, we're given empty platitudes such as, they're in a better place, or you'll see them again, or it's all part of God's plan. This morning I woke up to the news that my aunt had died. I know that when my family comes together to remember her, I'll be inundated by silly platitudes and superstitious wishful thinking. I don't for one moment believe I'll ever see her again. I don't think some deity in the sky planned her heart attack or designed the cancer that, unbeknownst to her, had taken up residence in her lungs. I don't want to take refuge in silly sayings or comforting lies. So what exactly can we, as atheists, offer as a substitute to those who are struggling with the loss of a loved one? For me personally, I try to delight in their lives and what they offer the world. For example, I'm not the same person I would be had I never met my aunt. I in turn will affect other people's lives, and those actions and effects will ripple down through time, until there are no humans left. As I was looking up sources for this video, I ran across a very cool NPR article written by a physicist who offered a different way of looking at death, free of superstition or fantasy. I found it comforting, so I'd like to share it with you. You want a physicist to speak at your funeral. You want the physicist to talk to your grieving family about the conservation of energy, so they will understand that your energy has not died. You want the physicist to remind your sobbing mother about the first law of thermodynamics, that no energy gets created in the universe, and none is destroyed. You want your mother to know that all of your energy, every vibration, every BTU of heat, every wave of every particle that was her beloved child, remains with her in this world. You want the physicist to tell your weeping father that amid energies of the cosmos, you gave as good as you got. And at one point, you'd hope that the physicist would step down from the pulpit and walk to your broken-hearted spouse there in the pew, and tell them that all the photons that ever bounced off your face, all the particles whose paths were interrupted by your smile, by the touch of your hair, hundreds of trillions of particles, have raced off like children, their ways forever changed by you. And as your widow rocks in the arms of a loving family, may the physicist let her know that all the photons that bounced from you were gathered in the particle detectors that are her eyes. That those photons created within her constellations of electromagnetically charged neurons whose energy will go on forever. And the physicist will remind the congregation of how much of all our energy is given off as heat. There may be a few fanning themselves with their programs as he says it, and he will tell them that the warmth that flowed through you in life is still here, still part of all that we are, even as we who mourn continue the heat of our own lives. And you'll want the physicist to explain to those who loved you that they need not have faith. Indeed, they should not have faith. Let them know that they can measure, that scientists have measured precisely the conservation of energy and found it accurate, verifiable, and consistent across space and time. You can hope your family will examine the evidence and satisfy themselves that the science is sound, and that they'll be comforted to know your energy is still around. According to the law of conservation of energy, not a bit of you is gone. You're just less orderly. Amen. I think that this response is far more accurate and comforting than any church sermon I've ever heard. I was listening to a podcast or video at some point. I can't remember which one exactly, but the person said something like, if you've been to a religious funeral service, I want you to think about the bits you remember most. Was it the priest droning on, or the personal stories loved ones told about the deceased person? My answer to that question would be, I've been to a few funerals, and I can't remember much of anything the pastor had to say. I do fondly remember the stories people told, many of which brought tears to my eyes. I think the truth is, we don't need superstitious nonsense to help us get through the grieving process. I think reality, and facing the loss head-on with the help of those close to us, can accomplish the task so much more effectively. There are also services available to those who need help dealing with grief and who don't believe in a deity or wish to take part in religious rituals. For example, if you're looking for a support network, you might want to try Grief Beyond Belief, or you could try the Secular Therapy Project, which helps match people with secular therapists and counselors. I'll leave links in the description box below. That's all I have for now. Once again, I want to thank Holy Koolaid, and I hope this video turns out to be informative. I'd very much be interested in hearing the viewers' thoughts on how they deal with grief. Maybe we can get a conversation going.
If you believe in my cause and you want to help support my work promoting science, curiosity, and free thought, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/holykoolaid. Even just $1 helps me to continue making these videos. If you're one of my supporters on Patreon, thank you. You guys are amazing. I can't make these videos without your support and your help, and it means so much to me. If you're new to this channel, hit the subscribe button. I really hope you like the rest of my content. Feel free to like and share. You guys rock so much, and together, we're making a difference.